Hey guys, welcome to a very chilled out, kind of slow paced recap of 2025. I didn't go into this year thinking, wow, it's going to be such an important one for me. There's going to be a lot of change and everything. It just kind of turned out that way. So I've been thinking a lot about how to kind of recap everything. And lo and behold, Fern posted a tag video with a list of her template of questions about how to kind of summarize your year in plans, and I don't want to leave a girl hanging. So Fern, thank you for this template. I'm going to be using yours today. I've been documenting bits and pieces of what I've been interested in and things outside of plants throughout the year in repots and stuff like that. So a huge shift this year has been, especially like in the last 3/4 of the year, rebalancing purely like from a quantity perspective, the amount of plants I have and how my collection fits into my life, the life that I want to live. And it's been a little bit more intensive in the last few months. So I'm very much in the brain space to be thinking about this recap. And while I didn't think about what my answer would be in terms of these questions, I don't have the answers prepared. The answers are already kind of floating around in here. Hopefully you have your cozy drink, you're maybe tucking into your Christmas chocolates already. I am drinking Yorkshire Biscuit Brew as always, but can we just talk about this mug first and foremost? I don't know about where you live, but this year in Vancouver, there seems to be more craft markets than ever before. It's almost physically impossible to get to all of them. So I bought 2 of these mugs because when I saw them, I had to have them. It's like a matte glaze on the outside, it's not raw. And the handles glazed green. The inside, hopefully you can see, it's also glazed green. We bought a bunch of cool stuff at craft markets this season, so maybe I'll do a separate video of that in January, but I wanted to show you this mug because it is so cute. Okay, now that that's out of the way, the first question is, what is a plant that you crossed off your wish list this year? I'm gonna start first with a plant that actually was on my YouTube wish list and not just like my mental wish list, and that is Anthurium dressleri. So this one was very unexpected. This just showed up in a box from Owen. This is from Wendy's last batch of Wendy dressleri, and it doesn't look amazing, but it seems to be growing, just not amazingly for me. I have moved it around a couple of times. I moved it into a much darker spot, which it surprisingly slowed down after that, so I might move it back. But that being said, the newest leaf, though it didn't form properly, is the darkest so far, so maybe I'm just gonna have to write it out a little bit. It's on the back wall of my tent, which is fairly bright, but there's a lot of plants above it, so it's being shaded from all directions. And I thought that might be what the dressleri wanted, so maybe it's not even a light related thing and it's just a watering thing, because I've been really bad at that this year. But I've done a lot of work these past couple of weeks in kind of getting rid of things and reorganizing. Like, how tidy does this look? So we haven't whittled the quantity down quite yet to what I would like it to be, but I'm already feeling better about staying on top of individual plants like this. So this is definitely a wishlist plant checked off, and I specifically wanted Windy dressleri. I think that might have been my top choice. And I don't even really want it to grow that fast. So actually, now that I think about it, I'm gonna keep it dark and just like monitor the watering, monitor the root growth. If the darkness in that spot keeps it growing slow, that is actually kind of ideal for me. So we'll just have to make sure that like there's no root rot, dry rot, but I'm very optimistic about my ability to get back on top of things in 2026. Another plant I checked off a wish list, which wasn't on my official YouTube wish list, but it's a plant that I wanted. It died, and then someone very kindly replaced it for me, but an even better version. And that's Alocasia nobilis, but I had a green version before, and it was replaced with a variegated version. 2 of them. Look how big this one is getting. Okay, I'm gonna show you this one first. So this one I got from my friend Justin, potting it out there, who is Owen's friend, and I was helping him ship stuff. So he just like sent me, first of all, he sent me a corm. That corm did not survive. I don't know what I did wrong. I put it into a mixture of just stratum. Stratum, a little bit of water at the bottom, put it in my propagation dome, and it just rotted. And then he sent me 2 more, and they were sprouted corn. They started rooting. It was on his first leaf. Both first leaves were green, but he was like, it's a good chance that they're gonna start growing variegated leaves. And of course they did. So I think this one was the first leaf. It's still held on right here. So you can see it's full green. And then the next leaf after that, a little kind of half moon situation. And then it just kind of persisted. This one is like almost fully white. It was actually called pink nobilis, but this one hasn't been pink for me. And this is the latest leaf, which I really love the shape of it. And I mainly love it because This is my boyfriend's favorite plant. I dragged him to an Echo Genera pop-up like years ago. There were other vendors there and they were selling this, and he fell in love with this plant because it just instantly reminded him of Rocco's Modern Life. And so I bought one then, and it survived for a while. It didn't grow. It was like great, and I repotted it and it would decline, and then I got it back growing again, and then it cormed. So I gave a corm to Charmaine, and then my mother plant died. So I'm very happy to be growing this. This is growing in my tent. And then the second one he sent me, I think the first leaf has died. Yes, it's gone. This one's a little more pink in places. So this was the first variegated leaf it grew. It's hard to see, but it's kind of like blushy pink. And then it grew this leaf here. Not that pink, right? It's kind of got that limey color. And then this leaf was quite pink. Not as pink as like very pink Nobilis. I don't know like where the very pink one comes from. Maybe it's not showing up quite pink on camera, but it is like a baby blushy pink. And then this was the last leaf it grew. It kind of grew into the wall, and I just moved it a couple days ago, but it hasn't straightened out yet. But this is the biggest leaf it's grown so far. It's huge. So this is now in a mixture of my DIY pond with like a little bit of stratum in there. And I repotted it out of like a little parfait cup into this, and it did not skip a beat. I did it right before I went away to Taiwan and just kept my fingers crossed. I was fully prepared to come back to a rotten plant, but they both just kept going in my absence. Next question is, what is a genus that you want to get more into in the new year? So by more into, meaning that I've had experience with it and I just want to build on that interest. I was thinking about genera that I've grown in the past and kind of not kept going in the way I've kept anthuriums going. So genera that I was quite into at one point, cut out of my life, have been Scindapsus. Never, I don't think I'll ever grow another Scindapsus. I just don't like them anymore. Begonia, I would say I really like them, but they grow a little too fast for me. So probably not begonia. Philodendron, I don't think so. But I do actually want to replace my micans. So it's already on my mind that next time I go into a garden center and they have like a little hanging basket of micans, I will buy one. It doesn't come up that often, but I'm not in any rush. But other than the micans, I'm not getting any more philodendron. I definitely think I want to get, there's two. I want to get more into carnivorous plants, but maybe specifically Pinguicula / Drosera. I don't see myself growing Nepenthes, even though I really like them, but they just seem like a little bit too involved for my schedule these days. But I really enjoy how Pinguicula and Drosera can be paired artfully and grouped and kind of arranged in pretty bowls and handmade pottery and things like that. So it kind of merges two of my interests together. And similar to fern, I do want to try more with orchids, but I never really got the hang of orchids, and orchids is kind of an intense hobby. Like orchid as a sub hobby is kind of intense and it's pretty intimidating for me. So it's not a genus that I would be like getting a bunch of, but I might get like one or two and just try to learn. And I never really learned that much, to be honest. When I got them, I just was trying to treat them like I do my anthurium, maybe dry them out a little bit more. But beyond that, I didn't learn barely anything about orchids. So I would like to learn more. What is your plant care routine? I do a lot of my plant care on camera because that's kind of my accountability measure, because without YouTube and this kind of schedule that I'm on, somewhat of a schedule, I would have definitely fallen way more behind on plant chores had I not had this channel. So there's that. But my ideal plant care routine, you know, like unwinding with some tasks, would be just have earphones in my ear and I'd be listening to podcasts. I like to do this when I'm home alone. I listen to a lot of true crime, though in the last half of this year, I found a podcast that has, I'm not even joking, has changed my life. And you're just gonna have to trust me on this because there's no way I can describe or summarize this podcast that would make you feel like it's worth listening to. It sounds so like self-helpy, and I don't know. I'm just gonna tell you what it is. It's called the Rational Reminder Podcast. So it's a Canadian podcast, which is amazing for me. Their tagline at the beginning of the intro is, it's a weekly reality check on sensible investing and financial decision making, which sounds like so dry, so boring. I mentioned earlier this year about how I'm not very financially literate, something I definitely wanted to change. It's something that is so important. And so I was going down this road of learning more I discovered this podcast. They go about this podcast with so much integrity. They're not selling you anything. It's just nerds talking about life rationally because it's so academic and it's challenging to listen to because some of these things I have no clue what they're talking about and I have to rewind it or revisit it in other days after I've learned other things. But it has taught me so much, not just about finance, but about life and about human behavior, decision making, the psychology of like regret, happiness, habits. It's made me learn so much about myself, and you feel like you're just kind of going through life. It's like you've put on a pair of glasses and you can see clearly, and it has helped me filter out so much noise. It's so strange to describe a finance podcast like this because I don't really know much about like influencers and stuff like that, but I can imagine they can be quite toxic. All I will say is that I cannot believe that this content is available to me for free. Like, this is something that people should be paying for, but it's incredible. And it's to the point where if Rational Minder drops an episode and Rotten Mango drops an episode, I will listen to Rational Minder first. And I get excited to get into tasks like repotting or cleaning and stuff just so I can have this in my ears. And I suppose the happiness that I've derived from it is feeling in control of things and feeling like there's a rational way of thinking about certain things. And I really don't find it boring because I think no matter what subject it is, if the person delivering it is really passionate about it, then it never feels boring. So that is my plant care routine. The Rational Reminder has made me more productive in like cleaning the house, getting to things that are kind of monotonous, tedious, that I don't want to get to because I have something I truly treasure in my ears. And I feel like I'm doing a lot for myself in the time that I'm maybe doing something for other people or doing tasks that I don't necessarily want to do in that moment. So it's been really motivating for me. I wish that it was like safe for women to be walking around outside with earphones in their ears because I would go on long walks with this in my ear if I didn't feel like I would get attacked in the forest. So that's one thing that I wish I could do. But anyways, the question was about plant care. I think I have answered that question and beyond. So let's move on to the next one. A plant success story from 2025. The first thing that comes to mind is breeding because I bred more this year or like had more seedlings to show for this year than any other year. And it still hasn't gotten old. Like the fact that I can look at a plant and say that I made that happen by pushing two plants together. Yeah, I have two plants to show. This is from my Carla by Carla Bivep batch that I did late last year. I'm trying to think when the seeds were harvested. It might have been like at the very beginning of 2025. And this is what the plants are looking like now. They're not yet in Cetaphil. I don't know that any of them are in Cetaphil. I might have one or two in Cetaphil, but this is one that I held back. This one's getting a little bit too much light. It's like slightly lightening on the edges, but this one might be my favorite from this batch. It's really dark, but it has really beautiful spidery veins while being quite elongated. And here's another one of my favorites that's a little bit more minimal, but also really dark. It's a little bit bumpier. So I would say that this is probably my biggest triumph of this year. Breeding Anthurium is so fun, but there's also the room for a lot of disappointment because you never know if a mother plant is strong enough to make nice, strong offspring, and the Carla Wu oneself turned out to be a strong mother plant. And then while we're on the topic of breeding, I want to maybe forecast a potential success for, I don't even know when next year. It's going to be a long time. But I think my Diabloense, I think we finally are getting berries. Bear in mind that this could all go south and these don't fully develop, but I think they're finally are berries growing on an inflow. I've been trying to pollinate this ever since it started flowering. And the thing about the Diabloense that always confused me is at the beginning, I thought I had successfully pollinated it, but it was just because the inflows just stay on the plant for so long before dying off. So it was a false positive. There's this one that seems to be like irregular bumpy. So there's parts of it that are bumpier than others. So I'm also kind of thinking I might have two shots at berry batches on this. I don't know if this information is publicly out there. I did kind of do searches on Google and Facebook about what the gestation period of Diabloense is, and I couldn't find any answers, but I'm going to assume that it's something like Clarinervium, so a year, a year and a half, I don't know, but it's going to be a while. But I'm going to put some optimistic energy on this and hope that next year we might have some Diabloense seedlings. I actually really wanted to clean this plant up a little bit because it's so freaking bushy, so every time a new leaf comes out, growing through this thick canopy of leaves means that every new leaf, there's some sort of rip on it. So I actually wanted to cut this back a little bit, but now that it's growing berries, I'm just gonna leave it alone and hope that something happens. Actually, before I put it away, I just wanted to show you this leaf because I didn't really show the plant properly. If you're not familiar with the Diabloense, this is why I'm so excited to make little seedlings of it. Next question is, what's a plant failure from 2025? There are so many plant failures from 2025. I'm just scrolling back to see if this actually happened in 2025 because it maybe happened late last year. Actually, no, this did happen this year. This happened in February. So in the past, I've broken my Pallidiflorum twice and both happened on camera. So I used to grow Pallidiflorum in like a narrow glass vessel just so it would give it some height, but it was so root bound in there that it was starting to decline. So I needed to up pot it. So I was trying to pull it out, but because it was glass, it was really hard to pull. You can't squeeze glass. So I put too much force on it and I just broke the top of it off. So there was no roots on it. So then I potted the top up in tree fern and kind of restarted that plant, and I left the stump in that glass vessel. And then when that stump grew a bunch of leaves and it was time to separate it out, tried to pull it out, broke it again. So then I stopped potting Pallidiflorum up in glass and I was just potting it up in regular plastic plant pots and then just raising it up higher with risers, which is what I was doing with my Pallidiflorum narrow, which was growing leaves like it was from this middle shelf here and it was touching the floor. So it was really starting to size up. And so one side of it was getting really heavy as the leaves were getting bigger and bigger. And so one day I was looking at this plant and the pot was slightly leaning forward with the weight on one side, but there was enough moisture in the pot to kind of hold it there. And I said to myself, I should probably repot it today. But then I don't really feel like doing it today, so I'll do it tomorrow. And that night, I didn't actually hear the sound. I just heard the dogs in the middle of the night just barking like crazy. And then they just kind of stopped and it was silence. So I just went back to sleep. And in the morning, my boyfriend came in and he was like, something happened in your plant room overnight. And I was like, it's the Pallidiflorum. I knew it and I didn't get to it. So now I pot pendant plants in plastic, but I keep it in a very heavy pot. So like a very thick, heavy glass vessel or just like a heavy ceramic cover pot. I knew all that stuff. I just put it off. So I shouldn't have done that. That was definitely a fail. The other things are technically fail. Like I failed my plants in not getting to the watering on time, letting pests kind of live for longer than they should have because I didn't have the time to get to them. But I don't necessarily see that as a failure because I was pursuing other things and interests and I just happened to have a collection that had become or was larger than I could commit to. But the nice thing about plants is so long as you know how to propagate and it didn't get so bad that it's fully rotted through the whole stem, then it will come back. So I don't really necessarily see that as a failure, just a flag for me to whittle down my collection to match my lifestyle. A plant trend prediction for 2026. So I will preface this by saying I'm not a trendsetter, and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a trend follower, at least not intentionally a trend follower. And usually when I even learn about a trend, it's when the trend is like almost on its way out. So I'm always very, very much behind. So in that vein, I do believe that people, and I see this like sentiment kind of floating around everywhere, is that people are either leaving the hobby or cutting down severely. And I will say, I guess, like I am participating in that trend, so to speak, of paring down the amount of plants in my collection and just kind of building off of a comment I saw in one of my videos. I think a lot of us in the last 5 years, definitely around the pandemic, kind of filled our house with plants and then kept kind of building on it. And then every time you run out of room in this space, then you build out another place with plants, grow lights, shelves, and things like that. And I think I'm definitely guilty of this. I did this so much and just hoped that it was okay with my boyfriend. And now that I'm paring it down and those spaces that I have reset to have less plants and more things and just kind of a bit more livable space, I feel some kind of guilt. Like he's never said anything about, I don't think it truly bothered him. I do feel guilty that I have encroached in our common kind of shared living spaces with so many of plants that were my hobby. Like they weren't bringing him any joy, I don't believe. And because both of us have been living in this space for years with so many plants, we've acclimated to it. But now with the new shelves and like just our books and like our things and places to display the things that we love and have collected over the years, the vibe of the living space has completely transformed and it feels a bit like waking up from a dream. So I do see more people seriously downsizing in the new year and maybe also like meshing plants and home decor together just because that's something that I'm really interested in and I'm usually behind the times. So I do see this continuing into 2026. What season do you find the most challenging regarding plant care? It is for me without a doubt summertime. Not only because it's so hot for anthurium, they don't tend to grow, like they kind of stress a little bit in the summertime. And my tent, when it's closed, it just kind of incubates and gets even hotter than outside, and I don't have air conditioning. And beyond that, I also really actively dislike summer, so I'm not happy. It's my seasonal depression season is summertime. It's physically uncomfortable, and I live in Canada, so it can get a lot worse than this, but I really do not like being hot. And there's something about like the chaos of like everyone's just kind of running around screaming and sweating that makes me quite uncomfortable. So I just don't like summer. And being in this plant room in the heat, which is it's hotter in this room than elsewhere in the house, I do not like summertime for plant care. If I had air conditioning, it would be a different story, but in my current situation, definitely 100% summer. Fall and springtime are wonderful, and winter, I don't really have a problem with. Like maybe things slow down, but not by a crazy amount. What plant pests do you struggle with the most or fear the most? Probably mealybugs. I am just so grateful I have not gotten mealybugs so far in this plant room, knock on wood. But that is the reason why anything that has been downstairs will not move upstairs, because I've been dealing with mealybugs downstairs for so many years. And that's part of the reason why I got just like chucked out so many plants in my living room, because like I've been treating them with alcohol for years and there's just so many nooks and crannies on these succulents and my Hoya compacta, which I really loved. I found it so impossible to get rid of mealybugs downstairs. So a lot of things just went in the trash, and the things that stayed were ones that never showed signs of mealybugs or were just a lot easier to clean. And I would say second to that is spider mites slash flat mites, which I did struggle with a lot. They're way better now than they were at the peak of its infestation in my plant room, but they still crop up from time to time. I think the scariest thing is that they do become resistant to treatments, and perhaps the only one that they cannot become resistant to is alcohol, but alcohol and anthurium can equal a lot of damage. So it's just like a lot of thinking and planning and strategizing and heartbreak when it comes to mites. So yeah, those are my two, mealybugs and mites. Top wish list plant for 2026. This is quite a difficult question for me because I don't think there's any plant that is really on a wish list, because my desire to have less plants is stronger than my desire for any one given plant. It's not even simply a desire for less plants, it's a desire to feel in control of my collection, which I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. And I want it to be like far below my threshold and have that wiggle room to start like thinking about, ooh, I could get a new plant, but I'm like nowhere near that right now. But if I had to say one, I would say probably stripy or something very strongly resembling stripy. Not only the stripy veins, but that like pebbly texture of stripy and maybe that grayish tone of stripy. That would probably be my top wish list anthurium, still has been for a while. But if I'm allowed to be a little bit less specific, maybe another wish list plant would be one that I don't even know about yet, but it's probably some sort of like spindly weirdo that I would be very delighted by. But I have not yet identified which one that is. But I think it's more going to be dependent on specific specimens. So it could be that I find a really like Dr. Seussy Dracaena on Marketplace one day, which comes up for me a lot, but oftentimes they're like on the island or like 4 hours like drive away. So I do take my time, but I'm always on the lookout for spindly things. It could be a bonsai plant, but that plant that's on my wish list, that's kind of weird and makes me feel something, it's not, it's still a question mark right now. Okay, the last question I really struggled with, and that is, what is your favorite plant of 2025? I think I would be lying if I just named any given one plant, because it's not just this year that I've been whittling down my collection and editing things out that don't bring me joy. And the things that I had this year, it's not been easy to whittle down because we've gotten to the point where I'm editing out things that I still like, but maybe don't like blow my mind with joy. So at this point, it's really hard to pick a favorite, and I have so many favorites. Like just think about all the growth updates I've done this year. All those plants are probably up there, but I guess if I had to pick one, I think that really represented this year, it would probably be Carla Blackier. Because if I think about it, like it's very representative of the anthurium hobby as a whole, like where the interests were, but also for me, I acquired a lot of Carlas this year. A lot of my favorites were Carlas. I made that Carla Bebop hybrid. Like it's everything has been kind of like Carla adjacent. Not everything, but like a lot of it. So I'll show you this one. I actually got this one last year. This is Carla 1x16. And it did struggle for most of last year, but it's been loving life in Tree Fern Pond. And it's just put out this leaf, which is so pretty, the color. Not all of my Carlas have this deep burgundy with the pink veins. I don't know if the veins are showing up much pink, but I really like the simplicity of this Carla. The veins are quite thick, but there's not a lot of it. My Carla Wu oneself is massive, but kind of ugly right now, but that's my like breeding mom. But this one, like for looks, might be my favorite Carla that I own. I know there's far more special Carlas out there, but this one I really enjoy, and it doesn't grow crazy fast, which is something that you can't really control. But when you happen to have a plant you really like and it grows just fine, but it doesn't grow out of control super fast, I think that's really nice to have like a few of those plants dotted throughout your collection, because otherwise you just get overwhelmed so quickly when everything's growing so fast. Now that is not a problem I'm currently dealing with. Like obviously with my plants, if you see my plants lately, they're all very crispy and like a lot of growth points are dying off because I haven't been on top of things. But in the past, when I was on top of things, I have been overwhelmed by too much growth. So I do appreciate this plant for that reason. And I definitely want to slow down on the breeding in 2026 because I just don't have the space. I just got this tidied up and organized. So I'm not as much as before eagerly anticipating plants maturing and flowering and stuff so that I can get them breeding. Obviously, I wouldn't say no to an inflow on this plant, but I'm not as obsessive over it as I was before. But anyway, that's my long-winded answer to the question. If I had to pick one, probably the favorite species of this year was Anthurium Carla Blackier. So that is my roundup of 2025 in plants. Thank you again to Fern for this video format. It really helped me out a lot. And just a quick channel update slash FYI. After this video, I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off just to enjoy the holidays, and we've got a lot of stuff to do in the home, so I just wanted to have the time to dedicate to that. And I mentioned in a recent video that I'm working on like somewhat of a career change, which is hopefully happening sometime in the new year, January-ish. I'm also in the middle of some career-related further studies, and I might be ramping up my work days. So with that said, I don't know when exactly this will happen, but at some point I will have to be switching to like every other week uploading. So right now I have 2 days in a week where one day I can be filming, one day I can be editing, and I try to keep my weekends sacred. But in the future, I'm going to have only that one free day, and it's not really feasible for me to be filming and finishing editing a video in one day. Like, it's technically possible, but I don't think I would be happy with the videos that come out that way. So I think I'll be like filming one week and like editing and uploading the other week. But hopefully with that bi-weekly schedule, I mean, I'll have more time in between videos to plan and give you a little bit more variety. But with that said, I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me for another year. I feel so incredibly grateful to have a channel that's grown to the size that it has, because I never thought it would be. Like, it's not a massive channel by any means, but it's far bigger than I ever dreamed it would be. And some of you guys have stuck around since the beginning, and I just cannot tell you how special that is to me. I hope you guys are having a lovely, safe, and warm holiday season. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the new year. Mwah!